What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of our NBA DFS DraftKings Picks videos, this time for Friday, January 14th. I'm your host, Justin Bales, joined by Spike once again. How's it going, man?
Pretty darn good. No complaints over here. Yeah.
We've gotten Spike locked and loaded into this YouTube schedule, have we not at this point? We can get started here by pulling up the projections. That's just me. These are strictly from last night. These are not for tonight because we're recording this the night before, so obviously new projections aren't out yet. Just wanted to give you guys a glimpse of what you get, just a small portion of our core plays package. As you can see here on the screen, we do have quite a bit of information on our projections. You have the obvious stuff, player position, team salary, all that good stuff. We have projected points. If you go over all the way to the right, you have floor and ceiling projections. We have the minutes. We have more advanced stuff like assists, rebound rates, pace boost, usage, all that good stuff, along with ownership projections, which realistically might be the most important thing in terms of NBA DFS, just because of the volatility, and you kind of need to know where to go and everything like that. The big one here that it is currently sorted by is karma value. Essentially, that is who's the best play based on their price tag. As you can see, Dennis Smith Jr. last night, Daron Sharp was up there as well. Big one, James Harden at 10-7, just kind of shows how elite of a play that guy really was last night with everyone out for Brooklyn. But a lot of great information on these projections. As you can see up here, you can sort by position to make it kind of easier to fill out your lineups to find exactly what you need. You can also download the Excel or CSV files if that's the kind of stuff that you need to do with projections as well. But we can move forward to today's slate. Before we break it down, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. As always, you can subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications if you don't want to miss any videos. That will send you a little ping every time that we drop one. You can go watch it then. And drop anything that you want in the comments. Spike and I will be in there throughout the day to respond to them. Essentially, what I mean specifically in terms of us responding is you can ask any questions that you want, because obviously, especially with bigger slates, they change quite a bit throughout the day. Plus, Spike and I can't go over every single player that we would be willing to play in cash games or GPPs, really. So we just outline some of our favorites. That can kind of change until the next slate. Or there's just players that you might want that we didn't outline. You can ask us about them. We'll let you know how we feel about them. But to get into tonight's slate, we start off with some injury news. In Phoenix, Cam Johnson is the only real person of note. He is questionable. On the other side, Torrey Craig and Malcolm Brogdon are both questionable for Indiana. Chris Duarte is officially off the injury report. For Toronto, Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent are questionable once again. Frank Jackson, Isaiah Livers, and Kelly Olynyk all out. For Detroit, I don't know if you saw, but Rodney McGruder back in Detroit now. Ball is back in Denver. Detroit didn't pass his physical, so they didn't accept the trade. But I don't think that really matters for tonight, just kind of a thing to note down. Moving on, Markelle Fultz, Etuan Moore, Wendell Carter, all ruled out for Orlando. You still have Mo Bamba, who is questionable, but Jalen Suggs is officially in. On the other side, Kelly Oubre and Kai Jones will both continue to miss time. Marcus Smart, questionable for Boston. Shake Milton and Danny Green both already ruled out for Philadelphia. You have a lot going on for Golden State. We have Otto Porter, Andre Iguodala, and Klay Thompson all doubtful, with Draymond Green and Gary Payton both already ruled out. Alex Caruso, really the only thing of note in Chicago. He is already out. Atlanta obviously traded Cam Reddish, so he won't be with them tonight. But also at this point, we're not sure if Kevin Knox will be able to play with them because the trade hasn't actually passed through at the time of this recording. Clint Capella's already been ruled out. Jalen Johnson is doubtful, and Kevin Huerter is questionable for Atlanta tonight. On the opposite side, you have Jimmy Butler questionable, which is going to be massive news tonight. And then you still have KZ Okpala, Markieff Morris, Marcus Garrett, and Bam Adebayo out. They've all been missing quite some time. In Cleveland, Rajon Rondo and Isaac Okoro, both questionable. Derek White questionable for San Antonio, but most of the other guys back in. Trey Jones is also out for the Spurs tonight. Damian Jones is out for Sacramento. There are other centers now. Tristan Thompson and Rashawn Holmes are both questionable. For the Dallas Mavericks, we have Kristaps Porzingis and Willie Cauley-Stein both out on the opposite side. I believe Steven Adams is expected to return, although nothing has been official. I think a lot of people said that he was going to return last night, and he actually didn't. So kind of puts us in a weird spot. Maybe they were just holding off on it for tonight, but kind of keep an eye on that, I guess. And then Killian Tilly has already been ruled out, I believe. That does it for injury news. Quite a bit going on there, and quite a bit that we're kind of waiting on, like the Malcolm Brogdon, Jimmy Butler. Those are the kind of guys that really can change this slate. Even someone like Mo Bamba, because obviously against Charlotte, if Robin Lopez is drawing a start and playing 30-plus minutes, you're just going to lock him in at 4-4. And I mean, it's 2022, and we're talking about Robin Lopez at the start of a show. So this is getting pretty ridiculous if you think about it. But we will actually go position by position, not just kind of start out with Orlando center against the best matchup that you could possibly get. So starting at point guard, Spike, break it down for us.
Oh, yeah. This is a position I really like tonight. Luka Doncic is 10,900. I have no issues with taking a shot here. It could be a back and forth with him and Ja. I probably won't go there, and that's more of a tournament play, but I got to throw it out there. You go down a little bit more, and DeJounte Murray is 10-2 with a matchup against Cleveland, and as we saw his last time out, I'm pretty sure he triple-doubled at the last minute.
Yep.
He's just on another level, man. And if Derek White gets ruled out, that's even a little bit more of a bump to him. And I just really like the way he plays. And if they're going to try and keep this close against Cleveland, he's going to have to be a big part in that. You go down a little bit more, right back to that same game. I think Darius Garland has gotten a little too cheap. 7,800. I think we've seen him in the 9,000s in the past week or so. I mean, he's been playing a little poor, I guess you could say. I mean, he really isn't playing terrible, but he's just not putting up those monster games anymore. But I think this is a good spot for him to get another ceiling game like that. Right underneath him is Darren Fox. Houston gives up the most fantasy points to point guards this season. I really like this game in general. It's two teams that just don't play defense at all. 7,600 is still too cheap for Fox. You can definitely get a ceiling game from him here. I really like him here. On the opposite side of that game, the Kings also don't play defense either. So Kevin Porter Jr. at 6K, I feel like is a little too cheap. And I wouldn't even mind playing both of these guys going back and forth against each other. You go down a little bit more. Tyrese Maxi is 5,600. It's his second game back. His first game back, he saw more or less his usual run, and he was out for at least a week. So that was a little surprising, but he's ready to get back in the swing, and we've seen him priced up at like 7,800 a couple of weeks ago. So 5,600 is just far too cheap against a Celtics team that's probably going to be without Marcus Smart. We're going to have to wait for that news. And then if you want some value here, you could take a shot on Davion Mitchell. Again, just get some matchup against the Rockets, and it's just a cheaper way to get a part of that offense.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of guys that I do like there. No, you broke down a lot, so I'm going to start stealing some shooting guards right here. I know for sure that you have some of these guys listed in your shooting guard pool. I do think that you're more or less on it at the top. I think that DeJounte Murray's fine, but I want Derek White to be ruled out. If he's back, I really kind of question what's really going to happen with DeJounte Murray, because White does play a pretty big role in the offense. Right below him, Fred VanVleet. I mean, the dude's up to 10K, but he's also just playing at such a high level. I'm not worried whatsoever about the matchup against Detroit. Obviously, he didn't look elite in his last game, but he's just consistently posting 50 plus fantasy points. He dropped 76 the other night. I mean, the guy is just on another level right now, and really he's taking that in with his whole all-star push at the moment. I agree with Darren Fox and Darius Garland. Both are really good plays. Right around the same price, Tyler Hero, 52 fantasy points in his last matchup against Atlanta. If Jimmy Butler's out, I think the Hero is an elite of the elite plays. Atlanta just is terrible against shooting guards. Obviously, Kyle Lowry takes the point guard position, which allows Tyler Hero to play shooting guard. If Jimmy Butler's back, Hero still gets a ton of shooting guard minutes. Butler's not going to affect that. The big thing that he's going to affect is obviously Jimmy Butler's going to get his. Hero nearly triple-doubled in their last game. That's not going to happen if Jimmy Butler's on the court. So kind of a little bit more risk there. I definitely wouldn't consider him in cash games if Butler's back. I don't necessarily know if I would consider him in cash. I guess I would at least consider him in cash if Butler's out, but I don't know if I would actually end up going there or not. As you scroll down a bit more, one guy that really sticks out, Jordan Poole. We have a ton of players that are projecting to be out, including Klay Thompson for Golden State, which means that Poole probably shifts back into the role that he had before Thompson returned. And, he was up closer to 7K at some points of the season. So 5,000 is a ridiculous discount. And I don't necessarily actually blame DraftKings for this one because they don't necessarily know when guys are going to rest and everything when they're dropping their prices and stuff. So kind of difficult to price Poole in terms of, hoping someone sits or anything. But I do think that he is way too cheap. A little bit under him to continue with the Houston, Sacramento. Jalen Green, just an absolutely elite play. Shot hasn't really been falling all that much. I know he shot 0 of 6 from deep in his last game, but he still scored over 25 fantasy points. He's only 4,800. And then obviously gets the matchup against the Kings that literally every guard in the NBA wants. And then just for a pure punt option, assuming he's in the lineup, Rajon Rondo, I think you can continue to use him. Minutes have been pretty inconsistent, but as long as he gets around 20, which realistically he should, he's too cheap at 3,600. So if he's in the lineup, I do think that Rajon Rondo is a really good option. Moving to shooting guard, quite frankly, I'm not even sure we have to go through shooting guard because we just outlined a ridiculous amount of guards. But is there anyone else at this position that kind of sticks out? Because I know that we just went over really just a bunch of options that are point guard and shooting guard eligible.
Yeah, I mean, you literally stole half. So, I get it too. So, it is what it is. I'll stick with those Warriors there. Andrew Wiggins is 6,200. I was watching a little bit of the game last night, and he was taking a lot of shots, and they were falling. So again, it's just too cheap for the pure upside that he has. He's very similar to Poole, except you get a $1,200 discount with Poole. Going right back to those Kings, Tyrese Halliburton at 7,400. It's a great matchup. I wouldn't use him and Fox. I would kind of pick your poison there, but both of them are really great options. Other than that, you could take a shot on someone like Cody Martin. He's 4K. They're still without Kelly Oubre. Get a decent matchup against Orlando. But yeah, that's really all I got to add there.
Yeah, Martin was kind of the cheap guy that I was going to say. I think if Derek White's out, you can go back to Bryn Forbes if you want. He at least has upside, so you can kind of take advantage of that if you want. Outside of that, I think you can add Terry Rozier to the pool. 7,400. He's just been a scoring machine recently, and he can add some rebounds and assists and some steals as well. So really solid option against Orlando, who doesn't, play a ton of defense or anything. Then two more options that I do think are viable. One, Buddy Hield, and it's not necessarily that I just love Buddy Hield tonight or anything. It's that he can score, and when his shot's on, he can score a ton of points in a short amount of time. Gets a matchup against Houston, who we've consistently seen teams drop 120 plus points against them. So the ability to score against them is going to be big, and Buddy Hield has that ability. So the upside is there for 5,600. Second one would be Terrence Ross. Now, I don't necessarily know how his role changes with Jalen Suggs coming back. I don't know if they're going to give him less minutes, kind of play him off the bench. Who knows? I guess he is playing off the bench, isn't he?
He is right now, yeah.
He always plays off the bench, though, so throw that out. I still don't know how his role is going to play because he's playing 30-plus minutes. I assume he probably continues to get that. But when you look at basically his season numbers, they're down at 26 minutes per game. Been playing very well recently, though. Another guy that's really reliant on scoring. The plus side of things is that he gets a matchup against Charlotte, who, similar to Houston, doesn't really play all that much defense. So I do think that Terrence Ross at 5,200 is too cheap. I just also think that he comes with quite a bit of risk, just for the fact that I don't necessarily know the whole role with Jalen Suggs. The big thing with Suggs, though, is that he's been out for quite some time, so I'd be shocked if he gets more than 20, 25 minutes. To be fair, though, we have seen some guys miss like multiple weeks and then just come back and play 35 minutes in a game. And it's really odd, but, maybe Suggs has been working on his conditioning and stuff before they bring him back. I'm not honestly sure at this point, but Ross does come with quite a bit of upside. Moving to small forward, who are you looking at here with Jimmy Butler up at the top there?
Again, I know we say it like every time we're on the pod, but man, I hate it. And it's almost like we planned this, but it's just not a fun position yet again. I honestly, if Jimmy Butler is ruled in, I really like that play. Other than that, at the top, you could interest me in Jaylen Brown at 9K going against the 76ers, or Zach LaVine at 8,400 against Golden State. But other than that, at the top, I really don't like too much. The first one that I really like, and this is actually going down there, is Harrison Barnes at 5,500. You're going to hear us say a lot of Kings names and a lot of Rocket names because they just make a lot of sense. And this one is no different. 5,500. He's still way too cheap for how he's been playing lately, and he just gets a really good matchup against Houston. You go down a little further, Otto Porter Jr. is only 4,700, and with all the injuries to the Warriors right now, he could possibly even start. But if his shot's falling and he's kind of scoring dependent, he can add some peripherals, but it's more scoring than not. But if that shot's falling, he can easily break that tag. And then if you really want to save some money here and spend up somewhere elsewhere, which you should because this position is terrible, Troy Brown Jr. is almost the minimum price at 3,200. The Bulls just lost Derrick Jones Jr. for at least 1 to 2 weeks, I think it was. And when he left the game the other night, Troy Brown saw a lot of those minutes. And this is another guy who's kind of scoring dependent, but if he's going to see 20 minutes a game, I'm more than willing to take that shot at 3,200. I mean, only needs about 16 to 18 fantasy points to pay off there. And it'll help you reach some of the higher guys. But that's probably about all I'm looking at right now. I guess you could if Scotty Barnes is in, I really like that play against Detroit. 6,400. It's a smidge too cheap, I think. But that's probably about it for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, this is I feel like there's a lot of plays that I'm kind of like, yeah, I would just throw them into a GPP, but like I don't feel any conviction there, and none that I necessarily love or anything. But there are a bunch of plays that I'm like, yeah, that makes a solid GPP option. When you look at the top, I like the matchup for both Gordon Hayward and Miles Bridges. I think that both of them come with more than enough upside to be used in tournaments. In between them, Sadiq Bey at 7,100. Obviously, he's cooled off a bit since, Detroit returned some players, but still comes with plenty of upside for the price tag. Gets a good matchup against Toronto, who's struggled against forwards at times this season. So I think that's fine. Like you said, Scotty Barnes, if he's in, he's way too cheap. If Scotty Barnes is out, OG Anunoby is way too cheap then. So one of those two, I think, make really, really good options. Right below that, Franz Wagner at 5,900 is a really good play. Like you said, Harrison Barnes is probably the best option, I want to say right now. I do think that he's probably the best. But I mean, it's not like I'm necessarily locked and loaded on Harrison Barnes either. As you move down a little bit more, Eric Gordon, plenty of scoring upside against Sacramento. So have no problem with something like that. And then I think you said Andrew Wiggins at shooting guard. He's small forward only on DraftKings. You were probably looking at Aaron Wiggins.
Well, touche.
But Andrew Wiggins also at small forward, I do think is a really solid option here. But I mean, that's probably what I'm looking at. For me personally, there's just like virtually no conviction on any of those plays. I think they're all solid. I think they can be plugged into tournaments, but you're kind of going to need to decide what type of risk you're willing to take in cash games, because there's not really anyone at this point that is like, yep, I need to lock and load that guy in cash games. But we can move to power forward. Who are you looking at here?
Yeah, so power forward, no one at the top really sticks out over 9K for me. First one that I really like is Evan Mobley at 7,300. He gets a matchup against the Spurs, and the Spurs just really don't have anyone that's that big that scares me. Especially when you have to worry about Jared Allen too. Poole can only guard one. So, I mean, their next power forward is Keldon Johnson, because they pretty much refuse to play Thad Young, unless they're gonna go double center here, which I just highly doubt it. It's just a really good play, and I think he's a little too cheap there for his pure upside. And this is someone that can pretty much contribute in all 5 categories. So I really like that play too. I was going to say Sadiq Bey. I mean, he's power forward and small forward eligible. So, I mean, you can use him in either spot. You go down a little bit further, Jason Tate at 5,300. As long as this guy can stay out of foul trouble, he should really smash that price tag. Just a matchup against the Kings, just no defense. I mean, yeah, that's that. I don't mind taking a shot at Marvin Bagley again at 4,800. It's a little. I'd say it's probably priced about right, and you could probably find something elsewhere. But I mean, it's a pretty good matchup, and he'll be starting, I believe. So I have no issues there. And then if you want someone real cheap, DeAndre Hunter's only 3,400. I think he's still slowly getting worked back in, but they just got rid of Cam Reddish, so I don't think Knox is going to be available, like you said, because the trade really hasn't even gone through yet. So that's a pretty good value play for someone who should see at least 20 minutes. And that's probably about where I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think Hunter's solid. My problem that I have personally with Hunter is that with so many guys out, Gary Payton, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, and Otto Porter Jr. all doubtful as well. You probably are looking at Juan Toscano Anderson or Nemanja Bjelica at price tags right around Hunter. So I think that Hunter probably becomes a really good tournament option, because it's not like Bjelica or Toscano Anderson are just locks to destroy their price tags, and Hunter can drop 25 30 fantasy points in the 25 minutes. So I think he's a really good tournament pivot, and he did kind of stick out to me. But I think that the cheap Golden State guys are probably where you're going in cash games. Outside of that, though, not a whole lot that I necessarily love at power forward that I didn't talk about at small forward. I think you're completely right on Jason Tate. He does really stick out for 5,300. I think if Steven Adams is out again, Brandon Clark makes an interesting option. Even if Steven Adams is in, I think that Clark is viable. Bagley, You can't trust the minutes, but if he gets 30, he's going to destroy that price tag in this matchup. I also think at the same price, or I guess $100 more expensive, Jay Crowder is still a very solid option. Not necessarily this dominant fantasy player, but at least viable in my opinion. And then if you want to drop down a little bit more, PJ Tucker, who I can't believe it's 2022 and I'm still recommending PJ Tucker. It's the league is just getting ridiculous at this point. But PJ Tucker is getting some minutes. I think if Jimmy Butler comes back, it hurts him a little bit because Butler obviously can play for him. But I don't know. He's been playing even in like 26 minutes. He's been scoring relatively well, which is actually shocking. If you guys remember PJ Tucker from, I think either last year or the year before that, when he used to play like 40 minutes, I believe it was up in Milwaukee and score like 5 fantasy points a game. So I don't know. That's not the PJ Tucker we have anymore. The dude's playing significantly better. And because of that, I think that we can kind of use him as long as he's still this cheap, right?
Yeah, no, he's not bad at all. A couple of weeks ago, I caught him on a sailing game, and he was virtually unowned. No one really wants to touch this guy, but like, it's there. Like, if his 3 shot is falling, and he gets rebounds and the occasional steal, so for that price tag, he could easily smash it. And of course, if Butler comes in, I probably stray away from that. But there's actually two guys I wanted to ask you about. Do you have any interest in Jaron Jackson Jr. if Adams is out? And the other one I'm drawing, and Chemeze Metu.
Yeah, so that's hard. I think both are solid tournament options. I don't really play either in cash, but I probably wouldn't play either in cash in like the best scenario for them tonight either. So yeah, in tournaments, fine with it. Jaron Jackson Jr. has looked really good with Steven Adams out. So if he's out again, completely fine with that. Metsu is the kind of guy that in 20, 25 minutes can drop 30 plus fantasy points, and he's cheap enough that that'll be good in tournaments. So I don't mind it, especially in the matchup. But at the same time, like I wouldn't expect Metu to all of a sudden play 30, 35 minutes, which is kind of what I want. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I do think I think both are viable. Quickly on PJ Tucker, he's the kind of player that, and this is something that you can always take advantage of in fantasy. Everyone remembers what he used to do, which is literally nothing. He used to play 40 plus minutes and he used to get barely any stats. It's changed. His situation's changed. His team has changed. His role's changed. Everything's changed. But everyone looks at PJ Tucker and they're like, that guy can't do anything while on the floor. Doesn't matter how many games in a row now he has consistently produced on the floor, because every now and then he'll drop a complete dud and everyone will be like, yep, I knew PJ Tucker couldn't contribute. Yeah. And it's doesn't matter that he dropped 40 for 3 straight games. When he drops the 10, they're going to be like, yep, I just knew that PJ Tucker wasn't it. But so that kind of thinking that you can take advantage of still in today's DFS. But we can move to center. A lot of very solid options here, but who are you looking at?
All right. First off, so we are recording this the night before, and I got to give a shout out to my boy John Conchar right now. 15 points, 17 rebounds, 3 assists. Absolutely wild.
Rebounds.
Absolutely wild for him to double, and he is not owned at all. I was not on him. Forgive me, but I just had to shout that out. All right. So at center, we got at the top, you got, Joel Embiid, 11-2 against the Celtics. I have no issues with that at all. What I'm more interested in is Pascal Siakam's 9,500 against Detroit. If he's more or less going up against Isaiah Stewart, just sign me up for that. He's just someone that gets a lot of usage, and it's just a really good matchup. He's been pretty much heating up right alongside Fred recently, and a blowout kind of concerns me, but that's just really not how I play. So I'd definitely be willing to take some shots on him. You go down a little further, and this one's a little obvious, I think, but Christian Wood at 7,400 against the Kings. it's still just way too cheap. I mean, he was really cheap at 6K a couple weeks ago, but like this is still too cheap. It's a smash matchup for him, and there's just not much not to like there. I don't think that's going to be a big secret either. I think he's going to be relatively highly owned for this slate. You go down a little bit further. He's getting up there, Onyeka Okongwu at 4,800, but again, there's no Clint, so he's probably going to start again, and he pretty much had like a floor game, right? The other night, and he still hit value. Granted, he was cheaper, but I mean, it's if a couple things go his way, there's an extra 5 to 8 fantasy points right there. You go down a little further, and this is going to be dependent on the Kings news, but Alex Len is 3,800. They're going to need that size against Wood if they're going to compete at trying to stop him somewhat. So if Holmes is ruled out, I really like that play. If Holmes is ruled in, I really like him as well. Given that he's not going to be on a minute restriction. Other than that, I mean, you could interest me in Jared Allen at 7,700 for the same principles that I was talking about with Evan Mobley. But that's probably more or less about where I'm looking at here.
Yep, you outlined it really well. Just guys that stuck out to me: Siakam, Allen, even Embiid. I have no problems with that. Christian Wood, just the dumbest price tag. He needs to be over 8,000. So really easy play there. The problem is there's so many good options that you don't necessarily just lock in Christian Wood because he is a little bit more expensive. So I think Yurtseven is completely fine if you still want to use him. Besides that, you're kind of waiting on this Orlando news. Robin Lopez, if Mo Bamba's out, Robin Lopez will be a complete lock. If Mo Bamba's in, I want to say that I would definitely use him. I don't think I would use him in cash games because you're always kind of worried about the minutes. You're kind of worried about the foul trouble, that kind of stuff. But I really like him in tournaments. I think that would be very viable. Outside of that, I think you kind of nailed everyone else. I don't really have too many issues with Isaiah Stewart. He does come with quite a bit of upside. That's probably about where I'm looking at, though.
So does Dwayne Dedman on his second game back scare you off from using your 7, or do you think he kind of won that battle already?
No, I don't think there's really all that much upside to playing Dwayne Dedman for Miami over Yurtseven.
No. I just mean because he's back and he's going to take some minutes away.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I don't think that he does take that many. I know, obviously, Yurtseven's not going to play 40 minutes now, which
right.
Okay, but like the last game, I think Dedman played 18 and Yurtseven still played 29.
Yeah,
I don't see a reason at this point in time for Miami to give Dwayne Dedman minutes over Yurtseven. It doesn't make that much sense. Like Yurtseven at this point has proven that he can play center in the NBA. It's not. I don't want to. He's obviously not a known commodity. We don't actually know what Miami has in him, but he's not a complete unknown either. We kind of know that he's going to hold his own. He's going to be able to rebound extremely well. He can score. He can assist the ball. He just has a lot more upside than Dwayne Dedman in the lineup, and there's really no reason, in my opinion, for them to move back to Dedman. But in terms of, do I think that Yurtseven's minutes are as locked in? No, I think he does come with more risk than he had previously with Dedman out. But at the same time, I think he plays around 30. And realistically, for 7,200, we kind of know that he can beat that price tag if he gets the 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he's kept his hands to himself recently, too. His last, I think, 5 games, his max is 4 fouls, so that definitely helps with his playing time. And yeah, I'd say 30 minutes is about an average for him. So
yeah, I mean, he's just good too. Like he's surprisingly good. So it kind of is what it is. But That's all we have for you guys tonight. Once again, if you enjoy the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Drop any names of players, any comments, or anything you have in the comments below. We'll be in throughout the day to answer them. Again, dfskarma.com is where you can find all of our stuff. Good luck tonight, though. Hopefully everyone has green screens by the end of it.